All right, it's 11:05, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Janae Epps, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for you guys. Okay, wait, I shared it on my end, but not on everyone else's end. Okay, and then I'll go to present. All right, I think everyone should be able to see that. If I can get a thumbs up or yes, that would be great. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to assume that everyone can see it. So again, welcome. My name is Janae Epps, and today I will be speaking with you all about Speak Up and Speak Out, engaging through self-advocacy to ignite action. So it looks like I did get a response. Let me see. Okay, yes, we can see it. Okay, thank you. So again, my name is Janae Epps. I'm the program director of the My Sister's Keeper program at Black Women's Health Imperative. Okay, and I don't know why. Okay. So here's a little bit about me. Like I said, I'm the program director. I lead and provide the strategic direction of our program, which empowers young Black women on college campuses, with the special emphasis on students at HBCUs to advocate for and contribute to their own health and well-being, as well as that of other Black women. And Black Women's Health Imperative is a national organization dedicated to the health and wellness of the nation's Black women and girls, physically, emotionally, and financially. And so Black Women's Health Imperative was established by Billy Avery on the campus of Spelman College in 1983. And at that time, it was called the Black Women's Health Project. And Billy Avery is still very much a part of our organization. She's an active board member and actively contributes to the programming that we do through the organization. And so here is a video that kind of gives the history of Black Women's Health Imperative. Oh no, how do I get to fix the volume? Oh wait, sorry guys. Presenter mode sucks. Okay, play. Okay, there it goes.
Black women are wonderful. Black women are powerful, we're beautiful, we're smart. Black women are my world, and have always been. My name is Billy Avery, and I like my ability to tough things out and to really hang in there until that goal is accomplished. I moved to Atlanta in 1981, and at that time I was on the board of the National Women's Health Network. And I started meeting with small groups of Black women. And the first idea I had was to do a conference. We thought we'd have 200 or 300 people come, and it was over 2,000. We went on with 3 days of workshops and talking. It was spellbinding, it was powerful, it was risky, and we grew from it. Black Women's Health Imperative is a place where Black women spend time thinking about improving the health of Black women. Health is a problem. We spend a lot of time taking care of other people ahead of ourselves. We don't talk about our issues. We keep them to ourselves. That's like our business. You do have personal power and you can be in control of your life. We make no bones about it. We are not here to take care of the children. We're not here to take care of the men. We're not here to take care of anybody but Black women. This is their organization.
And so that gives you a brief history of Black Women's Health Imperative in the words of our founder, Billy Avery. And so what does Black Women Health Imperative do? What do we do? So there's 6 things. One, we advocate. We advocate for policies that improve the outcomes for Black women and their families. We educate and train the next generation of leaders who will build the Black Women's Health movement and contribute to it. We amplify the voices of Black women to shift the public perception and policies for social change. We mobilize and engage women and organizations to pursue greater opportunities for gender and racial justice. We promote evidence-based and practice-based lifestyle change models that provide strategies for individuals and their families to address health inequities. And last but not least, we synthesize, translate, and disseminate information and research findings to strengthen the knowledge base on Black women's health. And so a little bit about the My Sister's Keeper program. Like I said before, it was created to empower young Black women on college campuses with an emphasis on HBCU campuses to advocate and contribute to their own health and well-being as well as that of other Black women. And so we've since then evolved the My Sister's Keeper program and really honed in on some focus areas and obviously some core components of it. Just a brief overview of the core components is about understanding and applying the tenets of reproductive rights and reproductive justice, being able to share lived experiences through authentic storytelling, training and engaging young Black women through mobilization and policy advocacy, understanding and employing the strategies of self-care and emotional wellness. And last but not least, creating strategies such as anti-racism and sexism strategies to apply in the fight for reproductive justice. And we have 6 broad focus areas in which we pull topics from each to really engage young Black women around these areas. So obviously leading off with sexual and reproductive health rights and justice, really centering the mental and emotional health piece, menstrual insecurity and stigma, anti-racism and allyship, anti-tobacco smoking and vaping, and last but not least, gender discrimination and violence. And so we've established 10 MSK chapters, 8 on HBCU campuses and 2 on majority university campuses. And so why are we here today? Our learning objectives is to understand and learn the history of the self-advocacy movement, the benefits of being able to advocate for yourself, as well as how to become an effective advocate for yourself. And so I like to start off with a poll to ask you all, do you know what self-advocacy means? And I believe my gracious host would be launching the poll. Oh, there it goes. Oh no. Well, okay, so it's asking all 3 of the polls at the same time, and that's fine because the first one is, do you know what self-advocacy means? And the other one is, are you a college student? Just because I'll be speaking about the work that we did with our college students. And also, are you a parent or parent of a college student and or know a current college student? So we'll give it about 30 seconds for folks to respond. While I find a pen. Okay. That way I can just skip the rest of the slides. All right, I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds. All right, let's see what folks have to say. See what group I'm working with. Oh, no one completed the poll. Okay. Do we have attendees? I can't see. Would folks feel more comfortable putting it in the chat? Okay, let me see. I don't want to just be talking to myself. Okay, I am talking to myself because there aren't any attendees. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
yeah, when I was doing the poll, it said 0 out of 1 completed.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but it says that we don't have any attendees on.
Oh.
It's just, you and I.
Oh my gosh.
It is a-okay. I know this is being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go through, right?
Okay.
And maybe they'll do a playback or something. That's unfortunate, but I'll just go through with what I have. I'm okay with that. Okay. And I get it, it's Sunday. And folks, oops, I stopped. Okay. All right. So I'm going to assume the ghost people that we have don't know what self-advocacy means. And so self-advocacy essentially is the act of advocating for yourself and your rights, being able to speak up for and protecting yourself with or without the help of others. And so, essentially it's the ability, obviously, to speak up for yourself and the things that are important to you. And self-advocacy means that you are able to ask for what you need and what need and wants, and tell people about your thoughts and feelings. The goal of self-advocacy is for you to decide what you want, then develop and carry out a plan to help you get it. And, it does not mean you can't get help if you need it or want it from others. It just means that you are making the choices and you have to be responsible for the choices that you make. And so that is what self-advocacy means. And so the history of the self-care movement began in Sweden during the late 1960s. People with intellectual disabilities were supported to form and lead their own leisure clubs. National conferences for the members of these clubs were held in 1968 and 1970. And the participants developed statements and how they wanted to be treated. And so in 1972, the idea spread to Great Britain, Canada, and the United States. In reaction to the control by professionals in the field of community living, individuals with intellectual disabilities formed their own self-advocacy groups. So in Oregon, in the United States, they formed a group called People First because they felt that their disabilities were secondary to their being a person first and foremost. So from there, the idea of self-advocacy spread across North America. And so self-advocacy means that individually or in groups, people with intellectual disabilities speak or act on behalf of themselves or others, or on behalf of issues that affect them directly. So by 1991 in the US, the efforts of self-advocates led to the national organization called Self-Advocates Being Empowered, or SABE, which is a national coalition of state and local self-advocacy organizations governed by a steering committee made up of 16 self-advocate representatives from all over the country. And so the self-advocacy movement is a recognized movement that has grown out of and learned from the civil rights movement in the US and the women's equal rights movement internationally. There are a lot of similarities in these movements because negative attitudes and practices have directly affected each of the respective groups and individuals. So these movements have led to changes in our society. And today, people with intellectual disabilities have a stronger voice for themselves and others who have similar disabilities. And so the powerful lessons we have learned from the self advocacy movement go beyond the world of disabilities, right? Because you can apply self advocacy to everyday life and the different environments that you find yourself in. And so the concepts of plain language, inclusion, and community living are all born out of the self advocacy movement. And the path to achieve those goals can teach us all about learning to slow down in this fast paced world and make sure that everyone is included along the way and treated with respect. And so, self advocates are, needed, like I said, in every facet of one's life. And, that's the history of self advocacy and, how it made its mark in the United States and how we can apply it to reproductive justice and all of the focus areas that we pretty much touch on for our My Sister's Keeper program. And so, what are some of the benefits of self advocacy? Well, obviously, I have four listed, being able to problem solve, to find solutions, building self confidence, having independence and self empowerment, as well as a sense of control over decisions. Um, According to a writer, some other benefits related to engaging in self advocacy include obviously being able to make your own decisions, gaining self confidence and self respect, building allies, learning to properly express your needs to achieve goals, also being able to experience teamwork, as well as developing conflict resolution and creative problem solving skills. And so the writer Davis says, in the end, being a self advocate is a skill every person with or without a disability should cultivate, since we know our own skill sets, abilities, and needs better than anyone else. And so, how do you become an effective self advocate, right? And so, self advocacy, like I said, can be used anywhere from schools to medical establishments to, with your friends, with your family. And so, being a self advocate and being effective in that can apply, like I said, to every facet of life. So the first one to be an effective self-advocate is obviously knowing yourself, right? You know yourself better than anyone else. So you know your preferences, you know your body, you know your diagnoses, you know the medications you take. And obviously knowing yourself is an ongoing journey. And you know what you like and what you dislike. And so obviously getting to know your own feelings and emotions is important when it relates to self-advocacy because emotions and feelings affect our behaviors and our actions. So effective self-advocates takes time to understand his or her emotional responses to situations, such as what situations can trigger anger, fear, or the feeling of being overwhelmed. Knowing yourself is also identifying your strengths, your challenges, your likes and your dislikes, because everyone has strengths and challenges, likes and dislikes, but everyone is uniquely different. So knowing your challenges will help you to figure out what areas that you require assistance in or support. The next thing to becoming an effective self-advocate is knowing your needs, right? So educating yourself, whether that's educating yourself on diagnoses or conditions you may have, being able to get the facts from your healthcare team about a specific diagnosis. Also knowing if you need more information about something, right? And being able to ask for additional support for that. And then also, knowing your needs in terms of what accommodations do you need, right? And those accommodations can be any tools that help you accomplish a goal that do not change the integrity of the task, but it's there to, help you. So obviously knowing your needs and the support that you need. And then the last thing to becoming an effective self advocate is knowing how to get what you need, right? And obviously, in order to get what you need to be able to effectively communicate. So, communicating what you need with your healthcare providers, your friends, your family about your concerns, feelings, anything, being able to communicate that, being able to ask for help, having folks to talk to is very important in terms of knowing how to get what you need, and then knowing who to get it from, right? You might not be able to get the support you need from your family, and then you may need to go to a medical professional. So in order to become an effective self-advocate, you need to first know yourself, second, know what your needs are, and then third, know how to get what you need. And so that brings me to talk about what we did during, schools, reopening or in the process of reopening in the midst of a global pandemic. And like I said, throughout my Sisters Keeper program, we work with college students. And so, young Black college students are always being faced with something, right? Whether it's the lack of investment in their institutions, the lack of support they may receive when they're in school, and then add on a global pandemic. And that created some stress, trauma, and more for these students. And so, knowing this, we wanted to create a safe space for students to share their concerns about the reopening of campus and what that meant for them. And, just really creating a space, right? Seeing if they were involved in the process for campus reopening. And, just what that impact was doing to them. And so obviously we opened up the listening session to, I stopped sharing. Let me go back. Oh, okay. All right. And so, these are some headlines, in preparation for folks to be going back to school this fall. So obviously for HBCUs, it was really detrimental to the institutions as well as to the students. And so we wanted to create a space for them. So I'm going to skip this, just asking if our folks college students and if they have a child and or no other college students. And so this brings me to a young woman who I thought her video was, really reflective of what I was talking about today in terms of, really letting the college students know that they have the right to advocate for themselves, even in the midst of uncertainty, right? And so I'll just go ahead and play this from this young lady and how she applied self-advocacy in school with one of her classes.
Hey guys, it's Miss Miambi Ayana back with another video. Okay, so I hope that all of you are doing amazing today. And as you guys can tell, I have been talking about apartments quite a bit lately, which I will continue because quite a few of you still have questions and I have plenty of answers for you guys. But seeing as I am a lifestyle coach of money management, self-advocacy, and learning to embrace you, I want to start delving into more of those topics. Specifically self-advocacy today, because it applies to so much that you might not even think about, such as getting an apartment, starting a job, and many other things. So if you are interested in achieving your best lifestyle, then this video is for you. So let's get right into this. All right, so the basic question here is, what is self-advocacy? Well, in short, self-advocacy is just about you. I know what you're thinking, that's not really helpful, but let me give you guys a little bit of context. Today, we live in a society where we communicate electronically through emails, text messages, and social media platforms. However, in-person interactions are very valuable because they allow us to practice for real-world situations where face-to-face conversation is required. Self-advocacy is about communication, and communication is about you getting what you want. And just so you guys know, I had to go through my own journey of learning to embrace self-advocacy and speaking up for myself quite a lot in my life because I grew up very shy and I always would get nervous when I had to communicate with somebody. And a great example was my first year of college, and I had to take my required history class. And I have never really been that invested in history. It's not really my favorite subject at all, especially because memorizing dates is it seems impossible for me. I'm not even good with remembering birthdays for people that I absolutely love and adore. So history was really a struggle. However, I always strive for the best. So, of course, I would love to get an A in that class, but over time, I realized that just wasn't an option for me. And it was getting to a point where I had to have a conversation with myself and say, this is the time where you need to speak up for yourself and go to an office hour. And I went back and forth in my mind. However, the semester was ending and I needed to make a decision fast. Otherwise, I would run the risk of having to completely repeat the class all over again, which I did not want to do. And the point of me going to the office hour, it wasn't really to necessarily get a boost in my grade. However, I knew that if I spoke up for myself, then maybe I would get the best outcome possible for me to at a minimum pass the class. So when I did go to see the professor, I just let him know, hey, I know this isn't an excuse, but this is my first year here. I do get a little bit anxious when I have to communicate. Um, is there any way that you could help me figure out what to pinpoint on studying for this exam, or how to make sure that I can pass this class, basically? And thankfully, he was very open-minded and understood where I was coming from. So he was very helpful, giving me some tips on what to study. And he also did boost my grade. So in that instance, advocating for myself really benefited me to the max because I went in just wanting some tips and tricks to study for the exam, and I ended up getting a boost, which helped me pass the class with flying colors, and I felt amazing. I never have to take required history again. But that's just to let you guys know, I understand where you're coming from if you do feel any anxiety when you have to communicate and advocate for yourself. It's something that you just have to work through. And I would say that the top 3 reasons why people don't advocate for themselves is 1, feeling shy, like I was throughout my life. 2, you don't feel worthy and just feel like you have zero self-confidence, which is okay. There are ways for you to boost your confidence, and I will link a video that will help you in I think the eye icon over here. And 3, you just might not know how to communicate or feel like you don't know how to communicate, whether it's a lack of proper diction or you simply feel like your words are jumbled when you try to express an idea. Either way, you will overcome every single obstacle that you feel is in front of you to advocate for yourself. And as always, I am here for you if you would like to schedule.
And so I thought that that was a great segue into what we found were the top concerns of the students at that time in regards to campus reopening and the impact it had on their mental and emotional health. The top one was virtual learning. Obviously, so during this time, having the courage to speak up and say, well, I'm not that good of a virtual learner, right? I have to feel in touch. I have to be in front of someone, physically to learn. And so the pandemic causing universities to go into virtual learning or hybrid really stirred up some of the challenges that many of the students already had. The other thing was COVID-19 testing and monitoring. um, you know, the the idea of being able to contract um, COVID-19 if campuses just reopened and didn't have the restrictions, or the restrictions weren't followed. But then also, the employment piece, right? Being able to work during the school year, and a lot of students who attend HBCUs and universities, they tend to work outside, right? Because meet whatever other needs that they need financially that's not really being provided by the school. And so the global pandemic really had an impact. And these are the top concerns of the students. And really impacted how they wanted to engage, but creating that space for them was really helpful to talk about these things. And so when we asked the students, questions about stress and, just questions to understand where they were mentally and emotionally, we found that 85% of the students did not trust their peers to follow guidelines. Obviously in the news we heard about folks having parties and, people just still not really understanding the threat of the virus and what it does to students. And so the students that were apart definitely, majority of them did not trust their peers. Stress levels for the students definitely increased during this time. A lot of them shared that they had increased anxiety, depression, with having to juggle. College is already stressful, so adding more stress definitely increased during this time. 95% of the students were concerned that stress would become more of a prominent issue for them. So stress can be paralyzing, right? And a lot of the students realized that, knowing that they had other obligations, and then also just knowing that professors or whomever may not really understand the toll that is taken on students, and just going about things as business as usual. And then lastly, students believe their universities were somewhat equipped, if not at all, to handle their mental health needs. So having access to professional mental health counselors and things like that, the students just didn't believe that their universities were able to do that, right? Especially if the students didn't already know how to access it when campus was opening. So now trying to access things virtually, or just having the opportunities available, was definitely a concern of the students. And so this is a video about a young man who shares, what having to deal with a mental health disorder, and, how he had to advocate for himself. And we find that even now, with students, they may have mental health disorders or conditions, and, you know, still having to advocate for themselves even amongst their family. And so we can only imagine that the pandemic has exacerbated some of those issues for students and how they have to advocate for themselves. So I'll go ahead and play this.
So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I have used self-advocacy as a tool to help cope with being an African American with a mental health condition. Overall, I think that self-advocacy is a tool that everybody needs to develop, but I think it's even more important when you are, one, African American, and two, have a mental health condition. In my experience, both of those traits individually affect the way that people treat me. So combined, it's even more important for me to advocate for myself and make sure that I'm getting the best treatment possible. The two biggest areas that this shows up for me is with my family and with mental health professionals. They weren't going to just hear me. And I think that being Black and looking young really affected my experience. Most people didn't want to hear that I was having the symptoms to begin with, let alone having breakthrough symptoms. And I needed to be able to advocate for myself to say, look, this stuff is still happening and it's really affecting my life right now. And I need your help to treat it. So there were three main techniques that helped me during that time of high frustration when I was trying to get my family and mental health professionals to really start listening to me. The first one was I needed to humanize my condition. I needed to really do the work to figure out what my mental health condition looks like for me in particular, so that people weren't basing it on generalizations or assumptions, and I could really articulate what was going on with me in my personal life. Thanks to the media and pop culture, there's so many images that say that people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia are out of control, that there's too much going on for them to manage their lives, and so they need to be locked in some institution somewhere, sequestered away from society. And that's just not the truth. For me to humanize what my condition looks like, I sort of just have to show up and let people see what my life does look like. I do see things and hear things, but it doesn't make me any less of a loving person. It doesn't make me any less able to interact with society and be part of a community. But people don't know that until they know me. And so humanizing my condition means sort of giving people a chance to know me better in my imperfections. And that's scary and a vulnerable thing to do, but I found is definitely worth it. The second thing I needed was I needed the patience to repeat the same information to my mental health professionals and my family over and over and over again. Around the time when I first got diagnosed, one of the main symptoms that I had was that I had little to no desire to be around people. It was something that was really pervasive, and whenever I went out with people, I just couldn't do it for very long before I shut down and couldn't manage anymore. It's the type of thing that my Black family didn't really understand, that they thought I should just get over. But medically, it was a symptom. And so I had to learn how to advocate for myself by repeating over and over that I still don't want to be around people. It took me saying that for multiple appointments before people were able to really hear me and really start treating me for what I needed help with. And the third one was the courage to take care of myself and my emotions in the midst of all of that. Over these last few months, since I've been diagnosed, I have been very much in my feels. And it would be so easy for me to push that down and to ignore it and to say, I need to figure this out quickly. I need to get it resolved so I can move on with my life. But the truth is that there is just a lot going on, and that's okay. It's okay for me to feel all of the emotions that I feel about this. It's okay for me to be frustrated with my family for having to repeat. It's okay to be frustrated with mental health professionals for medications not working fast enough, or side effects, or any of the things that I'm frustrated about. All of those things are okay. And that doesn't mean that this process and this journey isn't worth it. It just means that that's how I feel right now. And that's okay. Yeah, so that's how I've used self-advocacy to better my life as an African American with a mental health condition. I hope that this sparks a conversation and starts you thinking about how you can better use self-advocacy to improve the chances that people can see, know, love, and encourage you to live into your purpose. Thumbs up this video and subscribe to see more, and I'll
And so I thought that was great to kind of talk about some of the challenges, right, that folks may have while, advocating for themselves, but also even in the midst of those challenges, realizing that there's courage in doing so. And the more you advocate for yourself, the better your outcomes would be and the better you would feel about the choices that you've made. And so, in terms of self advocacy, igniting action, talking to the students and really hearing, what their challenges were and, the anxiety around campus reopening, that led students to action, right? They, pushed back on their professors, right, who were trying to dump all of this work on them during this time and to say, hey, I can't do all of this right now. How about you ask me how I'm doing? And how my family is doing. And so having students advocate for themselves in that way. Students were protesting about housing, right? A lot of the students were independent and kind of use campus housing or apartments around campus that, leased to students and, obviously students having to relocate and still having to pay rent for a place where they're not staying at that time. And so students were like, well, we know our rights. We know this is not good. Let's, protest. And so students were doing that. Students are, employing the self-care strategies and best practices. And so students were, giving themselves grace and, journaling and buying candles and just figuring out what other things they can add to their self-care toolkit during this time, and not feeling bad about it, right? Not feeling bad that they can't crank out a 10-page paper right now, right? Because there's so much going on. But then also igniting action with us, creating a space for that peer support and sharing, right? And so we just kind of led the discussion, but the students really chimed in. And, some of the feedback that we got was that they didn't know that they needed this space, right? And, just hearing what other students were doing during this time to kind of cope and, kind of practice their self-care, was supportive to the other students that were on the line. And so, it ignited, action across the board from students coming together to protest and organizing in that way to saying, hey, we're not gonna, keep running the mill. We're gonna practice self-care and take care of ourselves during this time. And then also we need spaces, right, to be able to share these things and, not feel judged and not feel like we can't talk about the institutions that, we're a part of and their lack thereof. And so, that's how self-advocacy ignited action, for the students. And so, you are the expert of your lived experiences. And so, getting the students to understand that, yes, getting a degree is great and all of that, but you know what the pandemic is doing to you, how it's impacting you. And so, no matter if the professor says, oh, it's just this, it's not just this, because it's not just that to me, right? And so knowing that knowing your knowing what you need, knowing how to get it and knowing how to express it is very important. So you are the expert of your life. And lastly, self-advocacy is a form of self-care to ignite action, right? Because the more you advocate for yourself, the more you create the spaces that you need for yourself, the boundaries that you need to speak up and not let folks walk over you, or to speak up for what you need to support you during that time. So that is a form of self-advocacy and will ignite you to action, especially when you do it more and you start to see the outcomes that come out of it that best suits you. And so it's definitely a form of self-care. And so that is all for me. This is my contact information. Again, my name is Janae Epps. I'm the program director of the My Sister's Keeper program at Black Women's Health Imperative. You can find us on social media, so Instagram and Twitter at both those handles. So the Black Women's Health Imperative, IG and Twitter, as well as the National MSK on Instagram and Twitter, as well as our website at www.bwhi.org. And with that, thank you.